So the bow, when you store it into your violin case, it needs to be loosened. So it should always be in this loosened state. So you can see my horsehair is shaking a little bit, and I've known, I've been around bows all my life basically. So I know when the stick is relaxed. If you need to hold the frog when you're twisting the screw over here and tightening your bow. So when you're tightening your bow, there's a mechanism inside that actually moves this frog piece downward, and that's what tightens your horsehair. And so you want to make sure you tighten it at the right amount, and then also when you're done, you want to make sure you loosen it right away. As soon as I stop playing, I have a habit, I just start loosening my bow. It's just something I like to do. If you have a fine bow, you definitely don't want to be leaving it tightened when you're not playing. You want to really preserve the life of your bow. It is a piece of history, and so you want to be taking care of it and knowing the full responsibility of having a fine bow or a fine violin or an instrument. So also, we don't want to be touching the horsehair. The horsehair can be replaced, so not really a big deal, but definitely don't want to be touching the horsehair, even if you've just washed your hands, because there are natural oils in your skin. And the only place I touch my horsehair is down here when I'm, using a good bow grip. Usually my thumb does touch once in a while, so I try to avoid that. As far as tightening the bow, sometimes when the room temperature heats up, like say you're in an orchestra rehearsal where there's a lot of people and a lot of body heat, the temperature will rise, and then even though you've tightened your bow the right amount, it will continue to tighten on its own, and sometimes you'll see this bulging bow. So I'll show you a little bit. You want to see this natural curvature of the bow here, so you kind of look at the distance over here. Every bow is different, so if you have quite a dense, strong stick, you don't have to tighten it so much. If your stick is quite soft, then you're going to have to tighten it more, so it might look more like that. But I definitely still want to see a curve right here. All right, so the way to know, my students always ask me, how much do you tighten your bow? I just do a little bounce test. So I'll take the bow and put it, in the center. Always do it in the middle where there's the most bounce. And I press down. So my horsehair is on the string. My stick is being pressed down to meet the horsehair on the string. I do that by pronating. So I'm taking my thumb and my index and pressing it down. You can see here. So I check how bouncy it is. You should be able to press it down, but it should not be really, really difficult to do so. So I'm going to loosen it a little bit because you don't want to tighten it more than necessary. I always want to go slightly on the looser side. If I err, I'd err on the looser side because I want to preserve the life of my bow. So see how it's a little bit easier to bounce. So that's kind of how I know. And then so basically when you rosin your bow, I'm going to go ahead and show you because I have this question a lot as well. So this is leatherwood rosin. It's a bespoke rosin from Australia. I'm going to go ahead and take this and go ahead and rosin here. You don't use a bow hold when you rosin your bow. You just grab it. Be careful not to chip the rosin against the ferrule. This is the metallic section of your frog. So you just go nice and easy over here. Be careful. But I spend a lot more time in the frog area, and then I shimmy down little by little like this. And then I stay at the tip quite a bit. If you just rosin like most people do like this, you'll see that I'm really not getting to this spot and I'm not getting to this spot. All the rosin's in the center. I don't like that, so I stay more in the tip. And then I kind of just pass through the middle. I stay more at the frog, and then at the end, I smooth it all out because we don't want clumps of dust, unevenly on our horsehair. And then I recommend my students put their rosin away and put it into the case immediately. My rosin never sits out. It always goes back into my case because I find that, you know, rosin's very easy to lose. It's very easy to break. If you just drop it once on a hard surface, it could shatter instantly and then it's no good anymore. So I always tell my students, put it right back into the compartment. And yeah, and then so you'll have your bow, and then when you're done with your bow, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and take the rosin cloth and just wipe it inside in between, and then you can loosen the bow. See how I'm holding the frog? Loosen the bow, you can see right there, and then I'm ready to put my instrument away. So hopefully that helps. One more thing about the case is that when you're storing your case, you want to make sure that you lay it flat where it's not gonna, you know, like topple over. Don't set it up on its side and then put it in a high traffic area. So just watch out, even if you have a student going to school and storing the violin at school, be careful not to leave it near heat sources. So a lot of times there's heating in the floor and the baseboards and things like that, and so we definitely want to be careful for that. A lot of school teachers don't know about fine instruments, and so they'll just tell you to put it somewhere, and if the student blindly does what they're told, then I have seen a lot of damage come from that. If there is too much heat and too much tension on the bow will it will actually warp, and it will kind of start popping out sideways. So you tighten your bow and then you look straight to dead on to see if your bow is straight. And so we want to be careful while we're storing it. The things that affect the instrument a lot is heat and humidity. So you want to watch out, like say if it's really cold during the winter time and you have a space heater, the space heater will dry up the air in the room, and it will also create direct heat. So I don't recommend sitting near the heater when you're practicing. If you really need it, then put it far away from you. I would say at least, you know, 8 feet, maybe 10 feet away. And then it's a little bit safer for your instrument. When you store it, try not to store it in a really, really dry place. Try not to store it in a super cold place, because going from cold to heat to cold to heat, that could cause the violin to, you know, go out of tune quite a bit, and then the student will have to deal with the pegs, and, you know, it'll just keep slipping a lot. So we want to be careful about that. And the other thing that I want to watch out for is I check my bridge all the time to see if it's absolutely straight, because the bridge will also be pulled. So let's say you put on a new set of strings. The strings are in the process of stretching out, so they keep stretching out this way towards the pegs, and then so the top of the bridge will be pulled along with the strings. And I've seen bridges just fly out before, if it has tilted so much and then it just cannot stand anymore. So I check that. And also, if you don't correct your bridge and keep it straight at all times, it will warp as well. And then if it has permanent warping, then you have to replace your bridge. So I always check this way to see if it's looking straight. I also check this way with my eye closed, and I can see that my E side is kind of pulled up a bit. So I will go ahead and adjust that, but I'm not going to move my bridge at all down at the feet. So if you notice your bridge is not looking quite right, you need to just tell your teacher immediately if you are a student. If you know what you're doing, then you just adjust the top of it, but it's difficult to control, so I wouldn't really recommend it unless you really know you can do it. So, all right, well, hopefully you'll take really good care of your instrument. I always tell my students, even though they have a student instrument now, you know, most instruments can become quite expensive. Even for a young student, they can have quite of a fine instrument. And so I always tell them, even though you don't have one now, you need to learn how to care for your instrument, so that one day when you do have one, you know how to do it. If you're a really good player and somebody wants to loan you a fine instrument, but they see how you handle your instrument, they may not trust you to take good care of the instrument, and they may not offer it to you. So you always want to be taking good care of your instrument. and it's a great habit to be in, and then that way you never know if great opportunities may present themselves in the future.